Hello, ladies and gentlemen of the jury. It is I, Emily Sophia, aka Mighty Sophia, here to break down for you guys the latest episode of Better Call Saul. And I apologize sincerely for missing last week's episode. I did in fact watch it. It was in fact wonderful, but I ended up watching it a few days late because I am in the process of getting ready to move. I know you can't tell that from the background right now, that's by design. And I'm also traveling to New Orleans soon, and there's just a lot going on in my life, so I'm probably going to be gone next week, and I will definitely be back to cover the finale of this season, as well as the finale for American Gods. So just be bearing that in mind. But anyways, today is Season 3, Episode 8, Slip. So, spoiler alert, before I dive into the mad thick of things, as I shall be endeavoring to bear all in this review. And without further ado, let's kick it. So, I thought long and hard about this episode, and one of the overarching themes that I personally came up with is the theme of debt and the reclamation of ownership in a world where basically everything is owed or taken for granted. So we have quite a few character focuses going on this week. We've got, of course, the not so dynamic right now duo of Jimmy and Kim, who are kind of on their own respective journeys. They are tethered by Jimmy's indebtedness to Kim, who's now confidently taking on a new client. He is doing his best to make ends meet and to use the skill sets that he has honed over the years, including slipping into some of his old habits. We also see Chuck trying to claim ownership of his condition, and I feel so bad because during the entire time that he was meeting with his therapist, I was incredibly skeptical. Because we have seen Chuck work the system. We have seen him work his own illness for his gain. But now he's starting to understand that, hey, wait a minute. I think that my mind actually conjured this business up. And what have I done, you know? So he's trying to claim ownership of that. And it sucks because he doesn't realize that his brother is still trying to sabotage him. And you could argue that everything goes back to Chuck and the way that he treated him and, you know, all of those family matters. But still, how heartbreaking is it going to be when Chuck finds out that Jimmy is still trying to undermine him? Of course, that's exactly what Chuck himself has been trying to do, but still, it sucks because now our heartstrings are being pulled a bit, and maybe we kind of care about what's happening to him. And of course, you know, he does have this whole pride thing. There is a bit of hubris, I think, at play in the way that he's approaching trying to overcome his condition. He's like, I can be the star pupil. I can get over this faster because now I know how it works. My brain is awesome. I'm going to take charge and everything's going to be good. And, well, that's not exactly how dealing with mental illness works, regardless of how accomplished and ambitious you are, truly. And I think that Chuck is going to learn that the hard way. And then as far as other debts go, we have Nacho, who does not want his father to be indebted to the Salamancas or to in any way become caught up in their black market dealings. And so he's making a very desperate decision in order to protect his family from Hector. And then we also have Mike officially going into business with Gus Fring, and that's a very exciting step into the future. But I'm going to go ahead and get into the full business of the episode, doing a recap and then kind of interweaving my thoughts and analyses throughout. So we begin the episode with Jimmy and the now deceased Marco in Cicero, Illinois, where they are breaking into Jimmy's parents' old shop to tap into his coin collection for a little scam, as they have been wont to do in the past. And they reflect on the old days and, you know, how Jimmy got started with this particular variety of con, And ultimately, as Jimmy shares the story about his father and the way that he ran the store, he feels like his parents worked their asses off for absolutely nothing, that people simply took advantage of them and they rolled over and let it happen. And because his father would refuse to make a profit from the rare coins that found their way into the till at the shop, Jimmy decided that he would start depositing those into his own offshore account in the the ceiling. He's not exactly the kind of thief that Chuck made him out to be. You know, we understand his rationale. He doesn't want to be screwed over. It's the kind of, when life gives you lemons, you make lemonade. You don't try to throw the lemons back at the lemon tree and be like, this isn't mine. I don't want this. I don't deserve it, you know? So that flashback kind of informs a lot of the decisions that Jimmy is making in the present, in the way that he's bending over backward to achieve his own aims, because he has seen his own parents get completely screwed over, and he doesn't want to see that happen to him as well. So elsewhere, Mike is apparently seeking out the body of the Good Samaritan who got killed during the heist back in season 2. I couldn't exactly tell what he was up to initially. I'm embarrassed to say. I was like, okay, what's he looking for? And oh, did he accidentally come across the body? But I'm pretty sure that was his original intent. Anyway, if I'm completely off base, then you can let me know in the comments below. But then he decides to call it in anonymously, of course, because he was trespassing on tribal lands, quote, looking for arrowheads with his metal detector. But I think that for him is trying to help restore closure for this guy's family, because, you know, he's been a missing person for, oh gosh, I'm terrible with timelines. I'm not sure how long now, but I think it's really important that he brings that body to surface, that life lost, so that the family can be contacted. And because it's sort of like, I think the impetus for his actions in this scene derive from the support group meeting where he spoke to Anita, who doesn't know what happened to her husband. And now the temptation is to say that, like, that's the same guy, but I don't think that is the case. So we get to see that, and there's also this really cool kind of bird's eye view we get watching Mike for hours on end with his metal detector in the desert searching and digging, and we kind of see these little mini Mikes populating across the landscape, and that was a very cool visual moment, one of many cool moments that the show serves up on a regular basis. And then we see Chuck meeting with Dr. Laura Cruz. He's already elated with his progress on the road to electromagnetic rehabilitation. Even with all the shit he put Jimmy through, you can't help but want to be excited for him, even if his motives for recovery may be suspect yet. And I think that that's just kind of my paranoia brain being like, this dude is a terrible, evil human being, but he is also human. And I think honestly he's trying to get better. And he's already convinced that he'll be back to work and court, throwing dinner parties, flooding his cave-like domicile with lights and music. He yearns to return to society and for society to return to him. But the doctor reminds him that he really needs to ease into this journey because it could very well be years before he builds his own Rome, so to speak. And she warns him to modulate his expectations, and that is not something at which I think Chuck is particularly talented. So they decide to revisit the fateful night that Chuck contacted her, and he explains that he was coming down off of a very public meltdown. And what he says is interesting. He says, "It was proven to me in public and beyond the shadow of a doubt that there was a battery, a fully charged battery, almost next to my skin for the better part of 2 hours, and I felt nothing. Which means, ... And he says, this condition to me is as real as that chair, it's as real as this house, it's as real as you," referring to Dr. Cruz. But what if it's not? What if it's all in my head? And if that's true, if it's not real, then what have I done? So for me, I'm thinking, is this another charade or is this sincere? And I hate that I even feel the need to ask this, But it does seem that he is showing some pretty authentic vulnerability. It could very well be that he's having his come to Jesus moment, you know? But unfortunately, it won't be too much longer before he gets back on the chessboard with his conniving brother, for reasons that are known to us and that Howard Hamlin shall soon be making known to him. Everything sucks. But anyways, Jimmy returns to do some ads for the local guitar shop, but the brothers are uneasy about forking over $6,000 for the full meal deal, especially after getting a comparatively reasonable quote from the local station. Even with the gratis ad on the table, they're hesitant to commit to the full 9 production yards, you know? Why do they really need Saul Goodman Productions' elite package? Well, turns out it's their loss. And so Slippin' Jimmy strikes again, Whiplash style. I gotta say, who'd have thought that a drumstick would be an instrument of extortion, you know? Not exactly the type of instrument that you would normally think of in the case of that. So when presented with an opportunity to go all the way, Jimmy, of course, goes so much further. And he's able to get exactly what he wants, but that is not the end of his exploits in this episode. And it's all very troubling because basically all roads point to Saul Goodman, and in some ways he already is Saul Goodman, using that moniker for a different business enterprise entirely, but we know where it's headed. So Kim is enjoying some Moscow mules with her Mesa Verde clients, Paige and Kevin. And I have to say, ever since, was it, I don't remember the first or second season when Kim goes out for Moscow mules, but that is one of my favorite cocktails now, and I have no shame in saying that I think that the show influenced me in that direction. It's so good when you don't feel like a friggin' fruity drink or a Cosmo or whatever. Like, I love the little tin cup and the whole presentation. Everything's so good. But anyways, so Kevin brings up Billy Gatwood, a friend of his who is embroiled in some cross-border ordeal and would undoubtedly benefit from Kim's top-notch services. But this is a little bit worrying because if she tries to branch out too much further from Mesa Verde, and of course her errant partner in crime, who is still up to shenanigans in the background, she could very well find herself stretched way too thin. Speaking of thin, so are her frayed nerves when the one and only Howard Hamlin bursts onto the scene. And good freaking God, he is the patron saint of patronism with the whole, seems like just yesterday she was logging hours in doc review. Is that really what you say about a person with their clients? Like, of course, he feels like he's been stabbed in the back. So this is just kind of the beginning of him wanting to get revenge, but still, that is so low. Even for Mr. Hamlin, hold him to a higher frickin' standard. But anyways, and then he also goes on with like the always a pleasure to see one of our proteges spread her wings and leave the nest, because she wasn't already trying to do that, you know, as if she had a freaking choice with the glass freaking ceiling that he put over her head, if y'all recall that. So after that unpleasant encounter, Kim makes a slapdash decision and scrawls out a check to Howard, and then goes on to meet some of HHM's clients from O'Malley Industries. And so it turns out that she drops off just under $15K paid to the order of HHM for a, quote, loan repayment, as the memo line shows. So then she graciously offers to connect Mr. Gatwood to a firm that can help him out with his case, and bids her faithful client to do. Ultimately, she later decides to take Gatwood on as a client, if not to try to support her and Jimmy, perhaps because of her feelings of confidence with trying to triumph over Howard. But yeah, no sooner does she see them off that Howard storms up to her demanding to know what the quintuple digits are about. And she insists that it's self-explanatory. She doesn't like that he took on her law school loans, and honestly, she wants out from under his thumb once and for all. So Howard then proceeds to dispense his unmitigated rage over the damage control that he's had to do since she and Jimmy dragged HHM's reputation through the mud. Oh, you poor soul. She was just doing her job, as she very aptly points out. And then he makes this angry show of forgiving her outstanding debts, but still holds her accountable for the rest of the shit show. But Kim is unamused at Howard's convenient ability to exploit Chuck's illness for his own purposes. Whatever happens with his clientele, then, is exclusively on him. She did her part. Now he can either seek to do right by everyone or no one. HHM can live or die by his hand. None of that guilt-tripping bullshit. So, it is very, very refreshing to see Kim stand up for herself, especially with the way that she was treated in the past season. But of course, I mean, much like Jimmy, I'm afraid that she's gonna fly too close to the sun. And Chuck and Kim's fates are the things that definitely worry me the most in the show right now. And now I'm only getting more and more frightened of where things are headed, because yes, she is a super capable lawyer, but I don't like this whole dual client thing that she's got going on, because Mesa Verde has already been huge and she's doing really well with it. I'm just scared. But anyways, Nacho starts getting his pharmaceutical revenge scheme underway and fills Hector Salamanca's pill capsules with ibuprofen, I think it was. And then he starts practicing the life or death drop behind the scenes. There is no margin for error here, especially when he actually has to do the deed. All he's got to do is pocket the pills, can't throw away his shots. Meanwhile, his papa is completely unaware of what is transpiring in his own workshop, the black market dealings encroaching on his humble little enterprise. Luckily, his son is sticking his neck as far out as possible to make sure that Don Hector is out of the picture once and for all, and they can, keep their upholstery business on the up and up. So Chuck subjects himself to a little sensory overload at the supermarket, and he's naming objects and colors as he clings to the edge of the pool, so to speak. He's not quite ready to tread the waters freely. And one of my favorite things is the oranges thing. That was really sweet. So then he endeavors to make his way over to the soy milk, which awaits him on the other side of a corridor of electric torture. I can't help but think of Walter White and his supermarket fugue incident from Breaking Bad. For some reason, just that aisle and that location was reminiscent of that moment for me, personally. But then later, Kim finds Jimmy on the floor with a Richie Blackmore signed electric guitar, and very fittingly, he is busting out his own rendition of the tried and true Smoke on the Water. Turns out he sold the rest of his ads, and we know precisely how he did that. And they were so thrilled with his services that they decided to throw in this new set of strings. Fancy that. And he's keeping things horizontal at the moment because of the accident. But no need for a doctor's visit. He just needs a little rest and relaxation. At least he's got the next 6 weeks covered on his part. And he says something that's just... For some reason, this line was really poignant and sad to me. He says, "My back hurts like hell and people suck." Welcome to my life, buddy. We are one in the same. Peas in a pod. And Kim feels bad that he's pushing himself. And honestly, this makes me think back to the whole situation with his parents, And so she tries to explain that she can carry them for a while, but Jimmy insists that they keep the halvesies arrangement at all costs, even that of his spine. And Francesca, I love this moment, she tries to sneakily pull out this little Hawaii travel magazine until Kim asks her to call up Billy of Gatwood Oil. And now that she's riding high on her latest victory against the former boss who held her back, why would she turn down the challenge? Especially with Jimmy's future hanging in the balance. And I think that she wants to convince him that maybe he can step off and not injure himself in order to make ends meet, even though that's something that Jimmy is more than willing to do, and I think on some twisted level it's kind of fulfilling for him. So this, of course, is the point at which Howard shows up at Chuck's bearing bad news about his malpractice insurance. You guys remember Jimmy's alligator tears in the office there? Yeah, baby. Round 2. That's all I'm saying. So then we get the whole immaculate sequence of Nacho preparing to make the switch and the drop, which he does successfully, but it is just this nauseating experience. You know, he's all but turned into that Jordan Peele sweating gif. I don't know if you've seen the one where it's just like Niagara Falls of body fluids. But yeah, I mean, that is some nerve-wracking stuff, and I love how completely unaware Hector is. He has never seemed more benign or feeble. He just comes across as this old man minding his own business, doing his reading, sipping his espresso, and poor Nacho, dude, like I just feel for him so much, and the tension that was built over the course of that sequence. And of course we have one of the chefs in the kitchen, and like, you know, the sound, the sizzling and crackling sounds from the grill make us really feel the pressure that Nacho is under. And now I'm wondering, did the guy in the kitchen see him make the drop? He did a damn good job. Evidently practice makes perfect. But at the same time, you know, it wasn't just the two of them. So I could see this potentially being really problematic for him. But yeah, so we go back to community service for Jimmy, who isn't exactly bringing in the trash bacon right now, what with his infirmed back. But he's never one to miss an opportunity for mutual back scratches, so to speak, as he spies a new business prospect in a man who's begging their supervisor to let him go see his hospitalized daughter. And Jimmy promptly starts hounding the guy, asking how much he'd pay to get out of this dump. And he says, you're trying to sell something you shouldn't have to someone who shouldn't be buying it because, you know, he's a little something that rhymes with mug mealer. So Jimmy offers to let him go free and get his hours to the tune of $700, which should be no sweat off this guy's brow because he's got a couple grand in his sock, apparently. So once his services have been hesitantly secured, Jimmy pulls yet another back-related stunt and threatens to sue the supervisor directly if he does not get his hours and the rest that he needs. And honestly, he and Chuck aren't quite as different as they would think. They're both willing to exploit personal ailments to achieve their ends. They're both real and fictionalized at the same time, you know? So I found that kind of funny. Another very quote-worthy line from this episode is, "This is the land of the free and the home of the lawsuits." And, you know, Jimmy goes so far as to say that he can bring his drug dealer buddy to make it a class action lawsuit. You know, how about it? Oh, hello, there's a plane outside my house. And that, after all, you know, the hapless just doing my job supervisor intentionally inflicted emotional distress by jeopardizing the guy's court-mandated hours, even in the midst of a family emergency. And he just starts going on and on. I mean, you can take the man out of the lawyer, but you can't take the lawyer out of the man, right? I don't think that's a real thing. I don't think that even means anything. But anyways, Jimmy starts lawyering the hell out of the aptly dubbed King Douche Nozzle. I'm bestowing that on somebody. I don't know who yet, but I think I'll find a fit. But he immediately finds himself way in over his head, so Jimmy wins the case before it ever goes to court. Way to go with the Jedi mind shit, as the drug dealer says. His client is all too eager to pick up the tab after the disgruntled Ginger folds. So Jimmy is able to kick back with his easy earnings, just doing his thing. Again, there's lots to be worried about. And honestly, it's tough to see Jimmy in this angry, dogged state of determination. He's starting to revisit some of his old patterns, but with a vengeance, you know. it's not for pleasure, but meanness, honestly. To quote, a good man is hard to find. One of my favorite short stories. But anyways, so Mike comes to Gus with an offer. He's sitting on $200,000 of unspendable cash that his family would never see if something were to happen to him. So he's hoping to have those underground funds channeled through a partnership with Gus, who is wisely wary of the risk that this act would entail. And interestingly enough, too, when Mike tries to sweeten the deal by offering him a 20% cut of that money, Gus insists, ever the principal drug lord, that he would not take out of the pockets of Mike's family. So ultimately, they shake on it. They are in cahoots and league with each other. It's very, very exhilarating stuff. So yeah, I'm really curious to see what the next couple of weeks are going to hold, because this week and the past week, it's a lot of setting up for some big stuff. We had a huge climax in the season with chicanery, which remains one of the show's most shining moments. But there's a lot of fascinating stuff at play here, as there is in every single episode. So fingers crossed for that season 4 renewal. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. And yeah, I'm going to be gone for a while, but I'll be back with my regularly scheduled reviews and hopefully even more of the content that I have been promising and yearning to put out for you guys for so long. So you guys, please take care of yourselves, okay? And I will be back before you know it.